Oh, God. Is this the Phoenix Lights?
Yeah. Okay, so here's what happens, in March 1997. This large, in 1997, this large V-shaped craft with 5 spherical lights, a light in the nose and 2 down each side of it on the undercarriage. It's observed between 19:30 hours and 22:30 hours. It's described by witnesses as stationary or slow-moving, and it is traveling across a 300-mile of space, from where it was first sighted, 300 miles from Nevada across the state line to Phoenix and then on to Tucson, Arizona. And thousands of people observed this craft, thousands of them. Hundreds of reports made to law enforcement agencies and media outlets. Okay? The observers, they are describing this craft as a huge 60-degree carpenter square with 5 spherical lights. Well, a carpenter square is 90 degrees. So that already tells you this is a modification for some sort of a purpose. This craft is so low that some of the observers ran up to high ground in its path and were hitting it with rocks and tennis balls as it went past.
People reported doing this?
Yes. They were hitting the bottom of the craft because they were shooting like tennis ball cannons up at it.
What?
Now, if you really thought that was an alien spacecraft, you've got a pair of cojones on you to go out with a tennis ball cannon and start shooting tennis balls at the aliens as they're flying past you. But that on the right is what the craft looked like. Okay, explanations given by the military, and this is important. Operation Snowbird at David Monthan Air Force Base. Training of Air National Guard pilots, A-10. They were the A-10 Warthogs, right? The Thunderbolt II aircraft. And this was confirmed by the Maryland Air National Guard. There was a pilot, a lieutenant colonel, speaking, as part of this explanation given by the media. The static lights were due to the aircraft not having to use anti-collision lights, according to a spokesman for the FAA. Now, the FAA says to the press, the public, that there were no anti-collision lights on this aircraft because the military does not have to turn anti-collision lights on all the time. But wrong answer. They cannot fly in civilian airspace without anti-collision lights on. They can fly on military reservations without anti-collision lights. Anti-collision lights are the blinking red, right? And white or green lights you see.
Yep.
That tells you whether the aircraft, when you look at it, it tells you whether the aircraft is coming or going away from you. It allows you to see it where it is in spatial orientation when you're flying in and around it. So,
Steve, pull up a photo of the Phoenix Lights. If you just type in Phoenix Lights, it'll show you like the pictures and videos people took from the ground.
All right.
Yeah, look how big that shit is.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to get to that. God. So they also they said it was they were illumination flares that had been dropped from the AC. From the A-10 Warthogs.
What was the media's official explanation for this?
They didn't have one. They passed on these points that I just showed you.
Didn't the governor came and did some sort of public talk wearing like an alien outfit?
He absolutely did, and they basically, the community just burned him down for it because he made light of it.
Mocking
you had thousands of people in the area that had witnessed it, and they did not appreciate him. He first started off being very supportive, but somebody told him, to shut your mouth and, go sit down and make a joke. And so he did. He did what they told him to do, and it really cost him. People were very, very angry about him doing this.
Did he ever say who told him to change his mind on it?
No.
Not
that I'm aware of. He did apologize.
I remember that many years later.
Many years later.
Yeah.
So here's what this thing is. It is an aerospace orbital airship They began building and testing these in 1964 as part of the space war, not the space race. They are building these balloons to be capable of achieving hypersonic speeds over Mach 3. I know, because you're head up to heights of 400,000 feet. Why are they going to do that? These are surface to orbit transport vehicles. They are building they're building balloons that will serve as, they aren't even really balloons. They have fabric that's self-sealing. They don't leak gas, so they never get to the point where, where the gas diminishes and they fall out of the sky. Mm-hmm. You put up a weather balloon, which is filled with helium, mm-hmm. and it will go up, and the helium eventually finds its way through the pores of the rubber because lack of pressure.
Right.
The helium expands the balloon, and the balloon either completely bursts and falls back to Earth, or it just starts to leak. Just like when you have a helium balloon that you bought at the fair and you bring it home, it will not stay afloat forever.
Right.
It gradually weeps that gas, lighter than air, through the material of the balloon. Mm-hmm. So they had to build something that didn't do that. And there are about 3 different aerospace contractors that are doing this. JP Aerospace is one. There's another one in Las Vegas. There's another one somewhere else. And you have McDonnell Douglas. You have all at Northrop Grumman. You have all the big contractors working on this stuff. They are building these things out of materials that are exotic, that don't leak, that if they get punctured in some way, like from a meteor, they self-seal. Mm. Right? You would think with the number of meteors that drop on the Earth, which is essentially even the little micrometeors. Micrometeors, it's the equivalent of a giant 10-wheel dump truck filled with like 9 tons of them. Right. That's how much hits the Earth every day, right?
How do you know this? How did you find this stuff?
There are patents in the clear that you can see these, and I know that the president of JP Aerospace, in response to the Phoenix Lights, would not own up to it being his craft or somebody else's craft, but he said, I recognize the technology. And that was the clue to go look further for this.
Who did he say that to?
He said it to an interview given to the media or to a documentarian. They asked him about it, and he said, yeah, I remember, and I remember it very well. He goes, I recognize the technology.
Do you remember the documentary you saw this on?
No. I'll send you a note on it.
Okay.
Okay. That's what this is. This is what they're calling, they're calling this the ground to space vehicle. It can go up 400,000 feet.
And where did you get these illustrations?
These illustrations are from Gray projects, clearly, right? These are not illustrations of active projects. These are illustrations where they start off with what we're going to do or what we're going to work toward. Okay? And this goes all into the idea of the dimension of space being a war zone. Mm-hmm. They want to put these very quickly built things that can be easily crafted, and they hover in low Earth orbit or further out. They can be autonomous. They can store supplies in them. They can be a functioning space base in them. They're massive. They're absolutely massive. Look, it's 175 feet long, and that's just this one. It was called the Trans-Atmospheric Ascender. And there's a A2636, an Ascender 90, and a one called the Ascender 175.
And you found this in a patent?
Well, I think the patent is in the slide deck here.
Okay.
Yes, that was the start.
Okay.
There were 2 clues. One was JP Aerospace's president saying, and these are JP Aerospace's craft, the Ascender series.
Oh, wow.
And the idea is to pick up materials, pick up parts, weapons, ammunition, supplies, people, whatever they need.
So
And
people
to
can
take
be
them up.
inside this?
Absolutely. I'll show you. This is the space station, solar powered, constructed, and you can see the one on the left and right. These are. You can see the ascender comes up, drops off cargo, picks up passengers, picks up something, waste or whatever it needs, and it goes back down again. And they plan to put these everywhere because if you are going to control the dimensional space with static stations, nobody's going to build another mirror up there. That's not going to happen. It's too expensive, takes too long. They can turn these things out by the dozens, right? And put them up there. And they are massive. That center core in the middle of the one on the top right, the red, where you see the red,
Right.
that's as big as a basketball stadium.
Jesus. And you have the patents for this in the slides.
Yeah, there. Look at down at the bottom right photo. You see the man standing next to it?
Yeah, that's enormous.
Give you a little bit of scale, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's just this is one that is clearly not even classified yet. It's a gray project. That's how somebody gets a picture and tosses it out there. Mm-hmm. But what flew over Phoenix that night was our creation. And they believe that it probably got off of its tether. You know, they fly them. Mm-hmm. They don't fly by wire. They fly them through radio control to test them. And it had nobody on board, but it got off the reservation, quite literally, came across the Nevada state line, coming from Area 51, drifted all the way to Phoenix and then Tucson. And everybody was like, holy shit, we got to cover this because we don't want people to know that this is what we're doing. But to everybody that wanted to see it as a UFO, which I guess technically it is, but it's not otherworldly. I think if you were to statistically look at and compare the number of sightings with what is probably actually us,
Holy shit.
it's probably about, I was on a show where two guys were intel guys saying that they thought it was about 94% of what's observed is actually they are products out of the space war. And I said, I think that's a very conservative underestimate of that. I think it's probably closer to
shit.
1998.
On the drive. Click on
98%.
that one, yeah.
Yeah.
Click on that, yeah. We talk giant V-shaped airships, space in the Phoenix Lights with JPL.
Yeah.
Click on that. This is an interview with the founder of JPL.
There you go.
Oh.
There we go. Look, there's the same images you had.
Yeah. I mean, even the CG rendering.
Wow.
Yeah.